think we're recording.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to get a thing here. Ah,
Check it out, Andrew. New music book.
Nice.
I say new. I've actually had it since like last year, but I'm old, so that's still new for me. But I don't know if you're familiar with the album, The Roke.
Very
Ross Miller, of
familiar.
course, he's just putting out a new album now, but I really like this album, so I was very excited to get the music book. Um, this is this is the main way that I'm learning new tunes these days in my life.
Hmm.
Is that I'm listening to piping albums and going, that is so cool. And not being presumptuous and thinking I could play it like them, but rather just thinking like, I want to know what that feels like. I want to try, that would be fun.
Yeah.
So then, having already heard this music done obviously really, really well, I don't feel like taking my time and like carefully, a little bit at a time, learning a tune maybe right. I kind of want to just like dive in. And this happened with the Fred Morrison Outlands album for me as well, where I got the music book. And honestly, I've dug in and really learned like one tune from that book. But I've
Mhm.
kind of like leafed through cover to cover with my practice chanter a ton of times. Just like being like, can I play that? And realizing, no, I can't. If I can't play it within like 2 minutes of trying, I just kind of flip to the next one.
Hmm.
Maybe I lack commitment. I don't know. But
Well, or maybe it's smart. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, there we go. I like that. Let's take the angle that I'm being smart about this and not not just lazy.
Yeah. I think you hit on the key word there for me, Jim, which is fun, right? So,
Mm,
I'm only going to learn a tune ever if I'm feeling like it's going to be a fun thing to do, right?
mm.
So sometimes when you flip through those books, you whether you realize it or not, you're doing a cost benefit analysis of attempting to learn a
Oh,
tune.
sure. Yeah.
Right? You're like, we used to do this endlessly as kids, like the Michael Gray books and the Bruce Gandy books. And you just go through the tunes, and then you kind of knew of all the tunes already because you listened to all the 78 Frasers albums.
Sure.
You knew of the tunes, and you're like, Finbar Saunders, freaking love that tune. And then you look at the music, and you're like, this is gonna be a little bit tricky. But I love the tune so much. I love the tune so much that it's gonna be worth it. So here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But then you get to other tunes, and you're like, you know what? This this looks
You
like a
still
lot of
love
work.
it. You
And,
love
I'm
it,
gonna
but you
skip
look
it.
at the music, you go, this is going to be tricky. You go, maybe not
Yeah,
today.
right, exactly. And you do the same thing throughout your life, right? And in
Yeah.
this case, we're just talking about learning tunes. So I think it's actually probably smart. I mean, the fun is like rocket fuel to the learning process. If I find
Mm.
myself learning something and not having fun, then I'm in big trouble. And by the way, I'm sure everybody does this differently. But for example, I've still got them here, although I have them mostly learned at this point. But just I've got some printouts of some of the band tunes that I got to get clear on here before I travel over to Inverary. So I have the music
Yep.
printed out. And what I'll do, I'm never going to play a tune by myself if I can avoid it. Like
Mm.
I love playing and making unison with pipe bands, and like I love the pipe band music. So that's what I'm going to do. So my secret weapon when I learn tunes is, and nowadays the technology is incredible. I used to have the Degger electronic chanter.
Yep.
And before that, way before that, we had the George Boyd one. My dad and I had one. But now I've got the Blair chanter here. It's incredible. And what I do is, and I actually have a fancy mixer here, but you don't actually need that. You can just play along if you just hook it up to some speakers or whatever. But I use my Blair chanter to play along with recordings. That's my
Oh,
secret.
gotcha. 'Cause then you
That's
can
my
tune right
secret
into it.
sauce. Yeah,
Mm.
and I can enjoy it. And I just picture myself playing in the band, having a good time. And I can set the pitch of that chanter to anything. So it can be
Mm.
concert pitch or it can be the band pitch. So I get that thing tuned in to the band, and then I just play along and I just play it over and over again, enjoying myself. And if the tune is new, like this tune by Chris Armstrong, if a tune is like totally new to me, then I just pop the music up and I just play along with the music. And if a tune is a little bit more memorized, then I do it from memory. I'll sometimes do a combination of the two, but I just try to enjoy myself. One of the
Mm.
amazing things that happens when you just enjoy yourself and you don't do any of the normal stuff people do, people are like, oh, I got to have this memorized by next Friday. So today I'm going to get the first part memorized. And then you pass or fail yourself based on whether or not you're able to get the first part memorized.
Yeah.
I found the brain to be a magical thing, Jim. And if you don't do any of that stuff and just relax and have fun, it tends to just happen.
That sounds too good to be true.
It does sound
really
too good to be
pleasant.
true, but it is. Time and time again, that's what I've done, and it works. So what I do is I just play the music and have fun, and I do it over and over and over again. And if it feels not fun, I change something to make it more fun. When I get to that part that's challenging me, I do that and I break it down in a fun way and I do it. One of the things that I like to do when there's a section of the music that's bugging me, by the way, this is the theme of this episode is just how I do stuff. So this might not work for everybody.
There'll be different methods, sure.
But what I do, I get to the third part of whatever tune and man, I'm just not getting it. There's a lot of things you could do there. What I like to do is I download the music into my Audacity or whatever my software of choice is. And I select that section and I try and be nice and precise about it so it's perfect. And then I press the loop button. So I highlight the thing, I highlight the part of the audio file that I'm having trouble with and I press loop. And then it just keeps repeating that part over and over again as long as I want. So now I can just drill into that and I can get endless attempts to get it right. And then if that still doesn't work, then I do the speed selector tool. So now I'm looping it at a slower speed and I can get it to the point where, okay, I'm drilling down into this. Okay, I think I got it now. I think I got it. And then what I do at that point is, once I've done it a whole bunch, then I take all that stuff off and then I try playing the whole tune a few times through again. But it's fun, right? The recordings that I get when I play in Inverary, there's recordings of the band rehearsals. So you get to play with the drum corps, you get to play with all the pipers, and you just play on your electronic chanter and the magic happens. And here's what I find is I don't worry about it. I don't worry about memorization. I don't worry about how long it's going to take me before I can play this well. What I find is if I just don't worry about it and just focus on having fun with it, what'll happen is I'll step away, go to bed. Maybe tomorrow I don't even get around to playing the tunes. But what I find is just magically the next time I get the tunes out and play them again, I have surprisingly, shockingly higher aptitude playing the tune. It's the weirdest thing. Almost like your brain just needs time to organize things.
Yes.
Right.
I just had that experience with my son with a piano tune. I'm in bagpipe mode with a piano song just earlier this week where he had this part of a song he was supposed to pass off today, actually. Later this afternoon, we're going to his lesson. He's supposed to pass this song off to his teacher. And he was really stressing about it. It's a tricky bit where he has to change fingering around and stuff like that. And honestly, he was doing great, but he was stressed about it. And so after we'd done enough reps on it that like I felt like he was really getting down the essence of it, I told him that was enough and that probably the next day he was going to find it a lot easier. He was distraught. He was stressing about it, just thinking like he wasn't going to have it ready. But the next day was yesterday.
That seems like the worst. That seems like the worst thing for a kid to be doing, doesn't it?
I often worry that I'm, rather than giving the gift of music to my children, ruining music for my children by making it like a thing that they have to worry about.
Yeah. And
Believe
probably
me, I don't know what I'm doing here. I think I might be messing them up. I don't know.
But the fact that thought crosses your mind is probably a good sign.
I hope that helps to temper the possible negative effects.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts. Yep, exactly.
But the next day was yesterday, and he sat down and immediately played that section so smooth. Like it came right out. It absolutely did work. That like letting it percolate in his head or so, I don't know what the effects are exactly that go into that, but there's something to be said for that system.
There's two ways to do it, right? There's a way that enforces and reinforces overwhelm over and over again in a dreadful feedback loop, or the opposite, where you're enforcing and reinforcing a state of fun and relaxation and enjoyment. And it's not that hard to conjecture which way is going to get you better results, right?
One of the things that I live in constant fear of is dystonia. Vocal dystonia, musicians dystonia, right? Where fingers don't do what you want them to do. I was recently reading the book by Ruth Childs where she talks about working with musicians who have that. And her angle on it is that a lot of it has to do with tense, fascia or fascia through musculature. And that's got like this new thing in my head all the time where like, I think it's actually a kind of stress for me right now, but like,
Right.
am I relaxed enough? Right. Her approach being something like when you're really tense all the time over the course of decades, this is a contributing factor to that happening. And so
Sure.
now I'm like, I'm stressed about not being relaxed enough. And isn't that a funny situation to be in?
For sure. And I'm not an expert in that, but it's really hard to watch people suffer with that
Yeah.
because there are quite a few of them that I've
Yeah.
met over the years.
Well, I
And
bet especially
so,
like going to music school, I'm sure you end up encountering that a lot. I hear it's a big deal at Juilliard and stuff like that. But
yeah, man,
you're
imagine
you're
that.
saying you have
Imagine.
fun when you play. I know. Yeah,
Yes.
you don't have to tell me to imagine. I do all the time. It's my constant nightmare. I
Yes. And then what I find typically is if something's not fun, I'm not going to do it.
yeah.
Right?
Now I've got a counter for you here, Andrew. Do you know the tune Pipe Major Willie Gray's Farewell to the Glasgow Police?
Yes.
I didn't like it much. I'll admit. It's not that I hated it. I just like I had not a lot of interest in learning to play it. Like that was just for me.
Hmm.
But the band decided to play it, so I had to learn it, and now I like it quite a lot. And
Hmm.
so,
Sure. But that might not be the case. There's definitely tunes that the band plays that I never really like. But that lower level slight decrease in fun was drastically overshadowed by the overall level of fun of playing in the band,
yeah,
which is what you're
I see
focused
yeah,
on. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be, I don't think you're ever going to be in that perfect situation. When you play in a band, you make an agreement to sacrifice and sacrifice isn't the right word, but sometimes you're going to exchange what you personally would prefer for what the group decides is in its best interests.
yeah,
Right. I think that's true when you join any team. So yeah, you're going to do that, and that's part of the agreement. But you can make that as fun as reasonably possible, right? So when the band has a new tune, and I don't even really like it that much at first, it's the same process. I turn on a recording of somebody playing the tune, and it's really good in Inverary that we're so good about getting those recordings out. I think Gus does it, and he's just religious about it, and it's incredible for me.
props to
Probably
Gus.
don't thank him often enough, but I turn that recording on and I turn it on in the car, maybe before I even start playing it myself. Turn it on in the car a little bit and try and feel the groove of it and trying to understand where they're coming from. Sit down in front of the sheet music and just try and hammer away at it a little bit along with the recording. I'm seldom ever gonna hammer away at it by myself just because I don't find it's not that fun. Could I do it? Yeah, I think I could do it, but I'd usually it's just not a fun thing.
Hmm.
But turning on the recording and playing along is fun. And then to your point, Jim, you often find that the tune that you didn't really like at first, it is actually really cool in several ways, and it can become fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've started to just trust that like if a tune has bubbled to the surface such that it's stuck around for enough years or enough other people in the band like it that it's in the medley, then even if I don't see it right now, there must be a reason for that. It's got to be a good tune. I'm just not getting it yet. And I think that usually ends up happening. I usually end up liking it. But I think you make a great point, Andrew, that the fun of playing with the band can be the outranking factor. And
Sure.
that's a great point. That's so it's a different discussion when it's a tune that I'm going to learn for myself for fun, for gigs when I'm playing by myself versus a band tune.
Yep, exactly. And sometimes that's a tune's role, by the way, is to not be a great tune. It's like sometimes we forget that. It's like you need yuck sometimes in order for the yum to really stand out.
That's beautiful. That should be a bumper sticker.
I know.
You must have
But
yuck to enjoy the yum.
exactly. Or in a maybe a more open-minded way of saying that would be you need to have contrasting ideas and styles, right? The more contrast you can provide, the better. So maybe a different style of tune, you don't love it, but that really like shows beautiful contrast with the things that you do love.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
you want to get it in there, right?
So maybe if you made a medley of tunes that you absolutely loved, it would actually be so like homogenous that it wouldn't actually be as pleasant as a mix.
I don't think maybe, I think definitely. That's one of the
interesting.
that's one of the things I love about playing in the band, and I hate it.
At the same
But like,
time.
let's say I write this cool medley idea and I send it over to the band and they agree that they like it. What inevitably happens is, and by the way, as a far away player, this happens without me being there. which is like really hard. It's like sending your little baby musical idea off to musical boarding school or something. But yeah, you're not directly able to participate in that process. And so what happens is the changes happen, and people add their own ideas to it and make changes, and that can be painful. However, it's awesome though, because if it was just my ideas, it would be lame. Just would be. By the way, it would be lame if it was all Alistair Henderson's ideas, or all Stuart's ideas, or or all John Dew's ideas, right? Or all Gus's ideas, or all Steven's ideas, etc. Right, in the band. But what happens is it melting pot? Is that the right term? Like the ideas come together and they intermingle, and this thing happens and that thing happens. And then, by the way, some of the people then circle around, and now it's like, I see where we've decided to go with this. Now, how about this? And that's so cool and fun. And I think any really great pipe band performance, particularly with the medleys, right? Any great medley is the result of many minds.
That feels like a piece of important, unexpected advice to come out of this for any of us who's running a band who might be in a position where we could just single-handedly create a medley and hand it to the band and say, this is what we're doing.
I know.
It'll probably be a lot better if you actually instead get as many members as possible in on the discussion about what we're doing.
Yep.
I mean, I've done that before. I've handed out a medley before and said, this is what we're doing.
Yep.
It wasn't a good medley. That's probably a big part of why.
So I've always been a creative guy. I like doing the medley ideas. In both of the top bands that I've played with SFU for a while and Inverary for a while. Terry and Stuart, masterful delegators or embracing the power of decentralizing a lot of these decisions. Now, don't misunderstand me. They're always still there. They've got the gong in case they have to hit it, but they're just great masters of not hitting it and just letting it play out, and only stepping in where they felt like things were really off the rails, or they felt like they had their own really good idea to provide. Yeah. And then me as a pipe major, I was pipe major of the grade 1 or more band for a while. Not one of my strengths. I feel like I probably had too many of my wild and crazy ideas, and we probably needed more constituents able to bring their ideas to the table and let them ride a little bit longer as their own ideas before I added my opinion. Probably. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I can understand that. And the self-awareness is important. That's a good thing to have.
It's great. It's great to have 10 years in retrospect. It's great.
Yeah, as long as you don't dwell on it too much, right?
I can promise you I don't. Yeah.
So when you are learning your tune, after having listened to it a lot, playing along with the recordings as much as you can, like how quick do you usually get a tune on pipes, Andrew?
How quick do I get it on pipes?
Yeah, like are you usually real antsy for that? Like by the 48th hour of having received the tune, you're on pipes? Or like do you not stress too much about that?
It depends. For the band, it's usually not in a rush at all. If it's solo material, maybe the opposite would be true. Yeah. But for the band, I'm usually not in a rush there. I usually just kind of wait until
once you have a tune, like once you've got it in your head and you're playing it on pipes, do you have a period when you're doing much hopping back and forth between practice chanter and pipe time? Or is it more like once you're on pipes forever with that tune?
No, nothing like that. It's always a smorgasbord. And I never really do much on the practice chanter. It's almost always on the electronic chanter for me.
Sure.
Even if I'm going to work on a P-Brock or something, man, it's just like way easier to just, if I'm going to be playing the P-Brock not on the pipes, it's going to be on the electronic chanter, because otherwise I'm going to have to blow the chanter for 15 minutes, and that's a drag. So just
kind of unrelated, and like I don't want to hurt Blair's sales in any way, like or anything like that, but a fear that I have is, as much as I would like to just play an electronic chanter all the time, what if my mouth gets even weaker than it already is?
Yeah.
Have you noticed any problems?
Yeah, but is it fun? Is it more fun to play the electronic chanter? For me, the answer is yes. So that's what I'm going to do.
That's a bigger deal. That's more
way
important.
bigger, way bigger. So anyway, that's just me. Everybody will be a little bit different. And by the way, sometimes you're not in the position to play the electronic chanter, and the practice chanter is the way to go. So then you just do that. But and then I do a lot of stuff with the music on the music stand. For example, that's why I print these out, is they can just float around with me wherever in the room I am. And yeah, if I do get the pipes out later, even if they're my solo pipes, which they probably would be today, even if they're just my solo pipes, I might just have a crack at these tunes on the pipes while I'm over there with the music stand and just see how things feel and so on. And the same would be true. Same would be true for any material. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm in the mood to play my pipes right now. Cool. And then you just grab the music, bring it over, and mix in a couple other tunes that are fun and so on.
I hadn't done it consciously, but now that you mention that, I do remember when I was learning the Highland version of the Kansas City hornpipe, which still, it lives in my mind, even though it's been a couple years, as like one of the more recent, more difficult tunes that I learned. So it comes to mind more easily, I guess. But that definitely, without consciously deciding to do this, that book ended up open to that page on my desk and then on the table and then in my car all the time. It was like always there. I can see how that could be a real aid to learning a tune.
Yep, for sure. And again, I think the root of it is that you want to have fun with the process. So my criticism of what a lot of people will do, like for example, like, oh, I got to get the tune memorized. So now I'm just going to, I just have to work hard at memorizing this. It's not easy for me like it is for you, Andrew. I have to work at this. But it's like, if it feels like work, you must be doing it wrong. Right? It's like, it's never, well, that's not true at all. Sometimes memorization has felt like work, and that process is way more painful, way less fun, and the results are way less sticky. And if you can manage to allow it to be fun and just relax and just enjoy the process, the memorization part is really quite effortless and fun. And what do you know? You hardly ever make mistakes, right? And because you're not forcing it. Yeah.
That I wish I could figure out. I mean, what you're pointing me toward is probably a way to figure it out. How it is that there are some tunes that
this is the way, Jim.
Some of these tunes are so deep in my fingers. Like I could stand in front of a crowd or anything and just play and just enjoy it. And I could even be thinking about like, maybe as this next phrase comes up, I'll try something different. I'm just chill about it. And that's such a pleasant experience. And there are other tunes that stress me out, man.
Yeah.
They're cool tunes and I want to play them, but I'm just like really freaked out about not doing it right, about messing up. I wish I could turn them all into the first kind.
That's the question that you really need to ask. How do I transform this thing that feels like work into something that's fun? Yeah. I feel like the more pressure, the more implied pressure on the other end of the tune that you're learning, the harder it is for people generally to do the right thing, which is to review, have fun with it.
So would that be like, if I'm learning a tune just because I think it's cool versus a band tune for competition, the pressure of it being for competition might actually hinder the learning process?
Amen. Or maybe it's not the competition so much as what the pipe major will think about you if you don't do a good job.
Yeah.
If I have the wrong grace note there on Thursday, the pipe major is going to be mad at me. Right. And so I think we descend into worrying about these things. Or if you're playing solos, it's like, oh my God, this solo too far march. Oh, if I don't start getting prizes this year, man, I'm worthless. Just a bad human. It's just not going to work out. And then you start to have these thoughts, and then you start to make irrational decisions about how you're going to go about learning the tune. The only rational thing to do is to continue to have fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which one of those really popular philosophers said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality? Can't remember which one it was. But
some smart dude.
One of those. And that just comes to mind here, where like I've done that when I'm getting a tune ready for a solo competition. I am suffering every time I play it because I'm imagining the stress of standing in front of a judge to play that tune. And probably
the irony, of course, is reality is, by definition, always imagined.
Ooh.
Right. Just
that one hit so hard I needed a drink of water.
That one caught you out. Yeah.
It did.
The irony there is you're imagining a horrible upcoming reality, but all realities are imagined, my friend. They're always interpreted either by the eyes or the ears or one of the senses, and then they have to be interpreted by the brain. And we know that these processes are inherently extremely fallible and obviously
yeah.
not actually correct.
I know I can't trust my brain. That's for sure.
Yep. Yes, exactly. Well, and you can't, right? So it
Yeah.
feels like gravity is holding you to the earth, but it couldn't be further from the truth. It's not actually how it works. And we know this, but there's a lot of counterintuitive elements of reality that aren't really true anyway. So people need to chill about all this. Just have fun.
That's so with that in mind, that's how we relax and enjoy learning a tune, right?
Yes, exactly. Also, there's the element of who cares, right?
Hmm.
Like if the pipe major is going to scorn you for accidentally making a small learning mistake, then who cares about them anyway? The important
I
thing is
love
that you had fun and that you did your best. But what are you doing your best to do? You're doing your best to learn the tune well. And the best way to learn the tune is to have fun. So I think it all points to having fun, right, Jim?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is one more reason after the are my bagpipes in tune, who cares concept as well. I think this is one more reason for you to consider the next rebrand to be Piper's Dojo. Who cares?
Oh, well, yeah, maybe. There's always the who
I'm
cares
just
element.
joking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just joking.
No, there's the right. Like you don't have to know, right? I think the fun is in exploring and trying to figure it out. By the way, what's one of the related to recent discussion we had on the podcast? What's like one thing that we always feel like we have to do that is the thief of fun, the thief of joy? One thing that we always feel like we have to do, Jim.
Compare and rank.
I was going to go with embellishments, was
Oh.
where I was going with this. So one of
That
the
was my
things we
second
feel
choice.
like,
Yes.
yeah, one of the things we feel like we have to do is we have to play all these embellishments because that's what bagpipers do, right?
Yeah.
But the embellishments really can be the thief of joy for a lot of people. And I was just showing you this music for the band. Man, there's so many embellishments I haven't put in yet because they're not working right at the moment. I'll sort those out later. Right now, I'm focused on like having fun, which, by the way, isn't really that true. I think I got most of them in. But you know, yeah, you get to the embellishment that you don't quite understand or you can't quite do right, and it's stressing you out. Oh, let the fact that it's stressing you out point you towards what you should do next, which is skip it for now.
Yeah.
And you ever spend more time trying to, you spend so much time trying to figure out how the gosh darn pickup note is supposed to work that you could have learned the entire first part by then. Just get rid of the pickup note for now. Just get rid of it and focus on this stuff that you know how to come in on the downbeat. So do that. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Start with what you know.
Yeah.
The other stuff will fall into place.
Yes, exactly. And so that would be my criticism of a lot of these things. Like there are books about how you can memorize tunes better and all that stuff. But it's like, and if it's literally actually fun for you to read books and think about these techniques, then that would be an argument to do it. But I don't think memorizing and learning and figuring all this stuff out, man, it's just look for what feels fun to you and do that thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I can imagine two different situations where I might get a book like that and be reading it because I find that interesting and enjoyable versus I hear that book exists and immediately feel stressed and anxious that like I got to get it and really commit to everything that's in there. Otherwise, I'm not good at bagpiping or whatever the situation is. Those are two wildly different experiences.
Yes. And by the way, you get a lot of mixed messages in the piping world too. Like you get the message that obviously you have to learn this tune with all the embellishments in. If you don't play with the embellishments, then it's crap, right? And so you have to have your own internal compass there. Sometimes people say stuff to me and just I'm not doing that. Doesn't sound fun. Just not going to do it. I'll get there eventually, but you got to do it your own way and the way that seems fun to you.
Confidence is key there, right? Like you've been doing this for a while and you're pretty good at it, and that probably helps with the confidence. And so I think part of it is like the who cares element, where to some degree we all need to be able to just be like, because not all of us will have that kind of trail behind us where we can look at to confirm for ourselves, like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm good at this. I know what I'm doing. So even if we don't have that, we need to be able to go like, that's okay. I'm still going to have fun.
Yeah.
I don't have to stress about that.
I think there's something to be said for that. Yeah. Confidence. And also just for me, I'm not going to do stuff in my life that I don't find enjoyable. Now, don't misunderstand me. Sometimes we do the cost benefit analysis and you say to yourself, doing the dishes is not fun, but the costs or the pros far outweigh the cons of doing the dishes.
Right. I hear you.
By the way, there's ways to make the dishes more fun. Like I will often, when there's a big pile of dishes, go get the headphones, put them in, listen to something while you do it at the same time. There's ways to make it more fun, but also, so don't misunderstand me. Sometimes we do have to do things that are uncomfortable because the amount of fun it can bring me in the future is high. There's a high level of fun, right, in the future. So don't misunderstand me. There's hard work in there mixed in, but it's all for purposes of enjoying my life. Because guess what? I'm going to be on my deathbed before I know it, and I want to make sure that I enjoyed my time here, right? But that seems melodramatic, but whatever you're doing with your bagpipes should be in alignment with that. And sometimes you see people playing bagpipes in a constant state of stress and overwhelm, and it's like, whoa, what are you doing? Stop that. Yeah, stop. You see that at the high levels too. It's like this person's running around winning tons of prizes, but like, are you having fun? I hope you're having fun in there, because it's not always apparent. Yeah, but then sometimes it is apparent that person is just having a blast. By the way, those tend to be the people you enjoy listening to the most too.
Is it something indicative of our age or something like that, Andrew, that I feel like a lot of the podcast episodes end with us talking about dying? This is just something we're both thinking about a lot right now.
I think we're both of us are just in that midlife crisis zone. That's all it is.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yep. It's coming for us all. What is it? Every man has two lives. And the second begins when you realize you only have one.
Yeah. That seems pretty darn wise. That seems good.
If I ever start a CrossFit gym, it's going to be, and it's going to sound a bit cultish, but it's going to be called CrossFit Second Life. Nobody steal that idea if you're out there. But because of that phrase, right? And like I started doing CrossFit because the realization came to me that like, yikes, if it keeps going in this direction, it's literally going to impact the length and enjoyment of my life. So I guess I better do something. And then like CrossFit was the first thing for me that kind of clicked, that I can do this and more or less stick with it. I don't have shredded abs yet, but man, sometimes when I feel frustrated or stressed, or I find myself not having much fun, I think about just how bad it could be without a regular exercise regimen and at least knowledge about what my nutrition should look like, and knowledge. And you're forced, when you do a CrossFit workout, you're forced to reflect on your nutrition choices, Jim.
Yeah, I've seen enough YouTube videos to know that sometimes your nutrition choices actually come back out to haunt you.
Well, and the same thing will be true. Anyway, let's use that as a way to circle back around and just say, piping, how I learn tunes and how I think about it, it all has to boil down to enjoyment and feeling like I get a lot out of it. And if I ever start to feel not that way, I, at minimum, pause and reflect. Sometimes I feel that way because it's my own damn fault that I was lazy and I procrastinated and I wasn't taking it seriously enough. And so I sort of take my lashings. But sometimes, more often than not, it points to like, okay, chill, bro. It's not that big of a deal. Just do the things that are fun and the other stuff will come around.
Hey everybody, Andrew Douglas here from the Piper's Dojo, and I just want to say thanks so much for listening to today's iteration of the podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, it would be super helpful to us and to a lot of bagpipers out there trying to find us. If you could give us a top-notch review on whatever platform you're using to listen to this podcast, particularly Apple, iTunes, and Spotify and things like that, your review would be really, really helpful. So if you have a moment today, definitely go over there and help us out. Other than that, until we meet again on the podcast or somewhere else, thanks again for listening.